Russia is hosting its biggest gathering of world leaders since its full-scale invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. Some 20 heads of state are scheduled to join the gathering, including Chinese President Xi Jinping. Russian President Vladimir Putin is holding the BRICS summit in Kazan in what analysts say is a bid to show the West that their mission to isolate Moscow has failed. It's also the first summit since the group added new members, including Iran, earlier this year. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has met Russian President Vladimir Putin. Mr. Putin noted that the strategic partnership between the two, while Mr. Modi reassured his Russian counterpart that India stands ready to play whatever role is needed to secure peace between Russia and Ukraine. Focus also on whether the UN chief will make his appearance. If he does, it will be Antonio Guterres' first visit to Russia since April 2022. Ukraine's foreign ministry condemning Mr. Guterres for making the wrong choice to accept an invitation issued by a, quote, war criminal, after he declined Kyiv's invitation to the first global peace summit in Switzerland in June. Our BRICS has increasingly seen itself as providing a counterweight to the West. The group was launched to bring together the world's emerging markets, but it has evolved as a challenge to not just the economic but also the political dominance of Western powers. Original members included Brazil, Russia, India and China in 2006. South Africa would join just a few years later, turning BRIC into BRICS. Earlier this year, an expansion would bring Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia and the United Arab Emirates into the fold. The 9-member group makes up almost half the world's population and more than a quarter of the global economy. These figures suggest the group has come at least halfway towards achieving its goal of providing an alternative to prominent global bodies like the Group of Seven. The G7 rich democracies represent only 10% of the world population, but take up a little more than a quarter of global GDP. Host of current summit, Russia has enormous interest in displacing the US dollar as the main currency in global trade, amongst its other objectives. But on that first issue alone, conflicting interests and incentives could get in the way of an easy consensus. And among the new batch of countries trying to join BRICS is Malaysia. CNA's Afifah Ariffin is usually reporting from Kuala Lumpur. Tonight she joins us right here in the studio. Afifah, Malaysia's bid to join the bloc. We mentioned just before we got to you that interest gets in the way of consensus in BRICS. But interest is what drives countries to want membership in BRICS in the first instance. How does it serve Malaysia's national interest to join BRICS?
Well, Malaysia has been very keen to join BRICS. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has been very vocal about it, at least from the second half of this year. This was something that was seriously raised in June, and the following month, Malaysia officially applied to join the bloc. Now, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's foreign policy remains non-aligned. You know, it is to be friends with everybody while putting national interests first. Just last month, we saw that he attended the Eastern Economic Forum in Russia. He met with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the sidelines. But in his keynote speech, he spoke about how the global south is rising and that Malaysia wants to rise with it. You know, being an open economy, Malaysia has greatly benefited from being a vital node in globalized supply chain. So, of course, the first national interest would be an economic one, to tap into the potential of BRICS, where its members contribute to about 37.3% of global GDP. But at the same time, what observers are also saying is that Malaysia's application to join BRICS, you know, can be seen as something that's geopolitically strategic, because it is joining the influence of, you know, the BRICS and the members of BRICS, while at the same time countering Western influence as well.
All right. Since you mentioned this geopolitical part of the argument, now national interest right at this point is not clear what the gains might be economically, but there might be some cost geopolitically if Malaysia signs up to this particular grouping. Has Mr. Anwar made that calculation?
Well, yes, I think what observers are seeing is that, joining BRICS can be seen as him sort of hedging or cozying up to major economies like China, India, Russia as well. But as I said, his foreign policy has always been something that's non-aligned and Malaysia first. So, observers are looking at Mr. Anwar's role as sort of this balancing bridge builder. Mr. Anwar, his profile, he's always been someone that's engaging the West as a very articulate English-speaking Muslim moderate, but at the same time, he's also continuing to build ties with the Muslim world as well. So he's always played that role. Mr. Anwar doesn't see any trouble in rejecting binary choices, either between the United States or China, and instead in engaging new links. One thing that he asserted was that, Malaysia or the world can no longer accept a scenario where the West wants to control the discourse, because the fact is that they are not colonial powers anymore and independent countries should be free to express themselves. So that's his position for Malaysia, to be free to create as many new links as possible. So in terms of joining BRICS, the cost of it also, he has to still look at his investments in the country. A lot of it is coming from the West, a lot of it major tech giants from the US pouring billions into Malaysia's economy.
All right, Afifah, I wish we had more time, but we were going to get also to the larger regional role, but we don't have time for that. Just quickly adding, so Thailand, another country wanting to join BRICS, and as you mentioned, they have also explicitly said joining BRICS does not mean Thailand is taking any side between, say, China and Western powers. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. CNA's Afifah Ariffin.